The country of Georgia is an incredible place for baked bread. The famous Georgian Khachapuri, the country's national dish, is basically a cheese stuffed bread. The style varies from region to region. I am so excited to finally create and share my version to mimic the most well-known of the Khachapuris. We are making the Acharuli Khachapuri version. Picture a gondola-shaped boat made of a chewy yeast dough filled with white, gooey cheese, topped with a runny egg and a pat of butter slowly melting over the yolk as it sits. That was 5 pounds gained just thinking. If you love cheese bread, this bread is definitely for you. In fact, many of Georgia's regional versions resemble pizzas, calzones, and lasagnas, all primarily just dough and cheese. Sometimes you'll find eggs and potatoes included. The Acharuli Khachapuri we're making comes from the Adjarian region in southwestern Georgia along the Black Sea with Turkey to the south. I bet you can't guess why the dough is shaped like a boat. This famous Eastern European bread has been around for centuries. From my understanding, we're talking 11th century during the Georgia Golden Age, but likely from India via the Silk Trade route. Nevertheless, the versions eaten today are becoming popular all around the globe. Georgia, I love you for making bread and cheese uniquely yours. For my recipe, you'll need yeast, granulated sugar, milk, all-purpose flour, salt, water, olive oil, feta cheese, mozzarella cheese, eggs, and butter. Yum! Well, looks like ingredients for a cheese bread, doesn't it? Well, let's begin activating the yeast. So in a small bowl, you're going to add 1 teaspoon of yeast. And then to that, we're going to add 1 tablespoon of sugar. And then we're going to add 1/2 cup, which is 4 ounces of heated milk. And this milk has been warmed in the microwave for 30 seconds so that it reaches between 100 and 110 degrees. All that does is just provide the heat that the yeast needs with a little bit of sweetener to get activated. Set it aside and let it become bubbly and frothy, and that'll take about 10 minutes. In the bowl of a stand mixer, or just a large bowl if you're doing this by hand, we're going to whisk in 300 grams of flour. 300 grams is 2.5 cups. Just make sure that you fluff the flour, you scoop it in the cup, and then level it off. To that, we're going to add 1.25 teaspoons of salt. Just give it a quick little whisk. You need 1/2 cup plus 1 tablespoon of room temperature water. And to that, we're going to add 1 tablespoon of olive oil. After you do your quick stir to mix them up, then just set them aside for a moment. With the dry ingredients in your mixer bowl, attach it to the mixer. You need to attach your dough hook. With the machine on low, slowly pour in the water and oil mixture. We've got a nice skin of bubbly froth going on in our milk yeast mixture. So now we're going to slowly pour that in. Okay, notice our dough is really wet right now. Make sure you stop once in a while and scrape down the bowl. Get all that flour mixed in. Allow the machine to knead on low levels 1 and 2 for 10 minutes, adding more flour as needed. I usually have to add another 2 to 3 tablespoons of flour. The dough should pull away from the bowl, and that's how you know that it has enough flour in it. Also, it should be still tacky but not sticky. If kneading by hand, knead for 10 minutes, adding flour as needed. All right, my 10 minutes are up. Notice how the dough is pulling away from the bowl. Go ahead and turn off your machine. If you're kneading by hand, you can stop kneading. With your spatula, just go ahead and scrape down the sides of your bowl, moving the dough to the center. Use some oil or cooking spray. Spray the top and the sides of the dough. Use plastic wrap or a towel and cover your bowl. Create a nice, cozy, warm environment. Set your dough aside in a warm area for 1 to 2 hours to get that doubled in size that we need to move on. In the meantime, while our dough is rising, we need to prepare the cheeses. So I have a medium bowl here, and I'm going to add 8 ounces of shredded mozzarella. And I prefer to grate my own cheese. If you don't have a lot of time on your hands, just buy the grated kind. But I will tell you this, if you grate your own cheese, it's going to melt easier in the oven because the grated cheese you buy in the store has been coated with some kind of a cellulose powder just to keep them from sticking as they sit in the grocery store. They do melt, but maybe not quite as easily. And since this bread has a really good melting cheese factor, I would opt for block cheese that you grate yourself. And then you want a block of feta. And blocks of feta come 7 to 8 ounces. It doesn't really matter if it's 7 or 8 ounces, just use a block of feta. Now, here's the interesting thing about these two cheeses. In the country of Georgia, they use Sulguni cheese, and it is specific to the country of Georgia, and it's commonly used in this dish. This Sulguni cheese is a semi-firm white cheese. It's a bit salty, a little tangy. It's dimpled in texture and has an elastic consistency. So between flavors and consistencies and textures, that one cheese, a good substitute for that is a combination of mozzarella and feta. You get the tang that you need from the feta. You get the smooth, elastic texture from the mozzarella. This is about the closest we're gonna get to the Georgian cheese. Once your cheese is mixed up, just set it aside until we're ready for it. Go ahead and preheat your oven to 450 degrees, and you need to line a large baking sheet with a sheet of parchment paper, and we're going to set that aside for the moment. It's been 2 hours. I let mine go that long, and our dough has nicely doubled. Yep, pretty nice. I can start to see bubbles forming on the top. First, you need to flour your board. Get a nice, good flour going on because the dough might be just a tad bit sticky for us. Use your spatula, and then just scoop the dough out onto the floured surface. So we're going to divide this dough into 3 relatively equal portions. You can eyeball this if you want. You can also weigh it. It's up to you how accurate you want it to be. I like to start with just a nice little rectangle shape and just try to eyeball it cut it into thirds. Then you're just gonna move 2 of the 3 portions away from you because you're gonna need the center of your workspace to roll them out individually. And then take the one that's remaining in the center and place it. We're gonna roll each of these out to about 10 centimeters in diameter, which is about 1/8 of an inch thick. Flour your rolling pin and then just start rolling it out into a circle. Now this may retract a little like pizza dough, but just keep rolling. You'll see bubbles start popping up from that yeast. If you find that it keeps retracting too much, you can let it sit for a few moments so to get used to its shape, and then you continue rolling. All right, so it's about a 10 inches in diameter circle. You're gonna start at one side. You're gonna roll it up about 1/3 of the way, just like you would a cinnamon roll. Okay, you're gonna do the same with the other side. You can turn it around, or you can just start rolling it up from that side. It rolls up actually very easily. And again, you're rolling it up 1/3 of the way. So you're leaving some space in the center. It's almost like a scroll. You're gonna take each end, okay, of the rolled sides, you're going to press them together, and you're going to seal them by pinching the ends so they stay together. You could even do a little bit of a twist if you wanted to. It's not uncommon to do that. You just wanna make sure that they seal so they do not come open when they're rising or when they're baking in the oven. You're gonna do the same for the other side. You're gonna pinch the ends together, and then just do a seal by pinching your fingers. It's your first boat, so we're making 3 gondolas. As we make them, we're going to place them on a cookie sheet, the lined cookie sheet that we have here. They're easy to pick up, so you can just pick them up by the edges and then just lay them in the sheet like so. Pretty simple. Now we're gonna repeat the process with the other 2 balls of dough. Just make sure you keep your surface well floured. Check that your boats are about 2 to 3 inches apart from each other on the cookie sheet. You're gonna whisk together 1 egg and about a tablespoon of water. We're just gonna do a quick little egg wash over the exposed areas of the dough, which will be the sides of our boat. But it's much easier to put the egg wash on before you add the cheese. And just all around each boat. You don't need to necessarily get into the center because you're gonna have the cheese in the center anyway. The egg wash simply just gives it a nice dark golden color. Last step before we bake it is to add the cheese. You're just gonna pile the cheese into your boats. And the cheese will melt, so it will decrease in size as it melts. So don't worry if you've got a little bit hanging out at the top, more above the boat edges. Okay, I think that's probably good enough. We're gonna place them now in the oven on the center rack to bake for 15 minutes or until golden brown. and then we'll add the egg and bake another couple of minutes. All right, our bread is browning, but it's not done. This is 15 minutes later. Take a spoon, make about a 3-inch well in the center because this is where we're gonna place our egg and let it cook for another few minutes. Take an egg, crack it. You can do it like getting a shell everywhere. Okay, so that's one. Try to do this fairly quickly. Then the last step is you're gonna add 2 pats of butter to each of the boats. Okay, and now it goes back in the oven 3 to 5 minutes until the egg white is sort of set, but the yolk is still runny and the white just around the egg yolk is runny because it will continue to cook after you remove it from the oven, so don't worry about the raw egg aspect of this. And back in the oven it goes. Our Georgian Khachapuri is ready. Look at that. Beautiful golden crust. You've got the cheesy with a little bit of cooked brown on it. You've got the egg yolk. You've got all that butter that you're seeing. That's a lot of that yellow. The egg is still runny in the center, but the white is cooked mostly around it. Mine was in there for 4 minutes at 450 to cook that egg. Now it's ready to eat. It's meant to be eaten immediately. Let's take a quick look at the inside of the bread so you can see that homemade bread. There you go. You can look at the crumb. It's nice, soft, just what you would expect, and it's like a pizza really. It's like a pizza crust. That's what we're looking at here. Hi, Scott.
Hi.
Are you ready for some Georgian cheesy, ooey gooey egg and butter bread?
Yeah, that's a mouthful.
Hopefully it tastes good. We'll see. So traditionally, if you're eating this bread at home, you don't use utensils. But either the server or the person who's eating the bread would start by taking a knife or a fork. You stir the egg because the egg yolk should be runny. You stir it in with the cheese because you're making a sauce, cheese and egg yolk sauce. Then, although I've given you a fork, I'm not gonna let you use it. So now what you do is you tear the bread off, you dip it into the sauce, and then you eat it.
Okay.
That bread looks nice and fluffy. Let's see as you tear into it. And the crust should be a lot like a pizza crust. Is that what you're finding?
So. It feels like a piece of crust.
That looks cheesy, buttery, and eggy. So what do you think?
The bread is a very adequate cheese, egg, and butter delivery system.
Okay, great. It should be.
The bread kind of has a little bit of a consistency of a soft pretzel.
Oh, interesting.
Which is good because, like I said, it's trying to deliver the contents of the center.
Exactly, it's a vehicle, and it's rolled up, sort of like a pretzel would be rolled up. So that's probably why it has that consistency because the dough is rolled on the inside. You don't see it, but that's probably where the texture is coming from.
It's a very different meal. I like it. Again, 0 calories in this one, right?
You're right. No calories. Scott's actually been eating this for breakfast. Have you enjoyed it as a breakfast meal?
It's a heavier breakfast than I'm used to, but yes, it is a nice change.
Yes. How would you compare it to a pizza, like a cheese pizza?
Different category. I wouldn't even really consider it to be like a cheese pizza because the bread it's softer to me.
Okay. Softer bread. And of course you don't have egg and butter on the top of a pizza. And the cheese is different. This is mozzarella and feta.
Yeah, I don't even think about a pizza whenever I'm eating it. So
all right.
It's very different.
Wonderful. But it's a good cheese bread. If someone loves cheese and bread together,
it would be a good accompaniment for a main course meal to have something on the side. I'm guessing it probably could be an appetizer or something like that.
Absolutely. And this could actually serve 2 to 4 people. Like we said, traditionally utensils aren't used, but at some point you're going to use all the bread that's on the exterior of it, so you're going to have to move to a fork and eat the interior. Eat this how you want, serve it how you want. Be good for breakfast as you've been eating it. Snack, appetizer, dinner accompaniment, it's your choice. While this bread should be eaten immediately, you can store it in the fridge for a couple of days and heat it in the microwave just until warm. You've been doing that lately because we've had multiple versions of these. How have they been okay in the microwave, heated?
It's been okay. I think that it's better fresh just because the consistency of the egg is a little bit nicer when it's fresh.
Right, it's going to be a little bit runnier. When you put it in the microwave, it's going to start to heat and cook.
Right.
Thanks for watching. Until next time, go bake the world.